The marketplace was loud, filled with smoke and the smell of cheap food. Merchants shouted, selling broken tools and old machines. But in the center, under the burning lamps, there was a stage, and on that stage, creatures were being sold like objects. The crowd pushed closer, laughing, pointing, waiting for the next show. It was not a show of talent or music. It was an auction of lives. Slaves, broken workers, mothers, and children were dragged one by one. Chains clinked against the wooden floor as each victim was displayed. From the shadows, a human man watched silently. He wore simple clothes, travel-worn boots, and his face looked tired. He was just another traveler in a strange world, but his eyes carried a quiet fire. Then the announcer shouted, "Next one!" Guards dragged a thin alien woman forward. Her skin was pale, her hair messy, and her eyes filled with tears. In her arms, she clutched a small child, no older than 6. The crowd laughed. "She brings a child. Useless. She is starving. Look, at her bones she is worth nothing." The mother trembled but did not let go of her child. The guards kicked her knees, forcing her to the ground. The child cried, holding tightly to her torn dress. The announcer sneered. "This one offers herself. Willingly." Gasps echoed, then cruel laughter followed. "She came here by choice?" "Yes, she sold herself for crumbs. She begs to be taken, just to feed her brat." The woman lowered her head, her voice breaking. "Please, I will serve anyone. I will obey. Just give food to my little one." Her hands shook, but she held. The child close, her pride was gone, stripped away by hunger and despair. The crowd shouted insults. "She is not worth a single coin." "Let the child starve. It is nature's way." Some threw scraps at her, not food but stones. She shielded her child with her body, enduring the pain. The human in the shadows clenched his fists. Something inside him twisted, anger, pity, and something more. He had seen war. He had seen cruelty. But this was different. This was not soldiers fighting. This was not enemies clashing. This was a mother begging to keep her child alive. The announcer laughed again, raising his hand. "Who will bid? 1 credit, half a credit, even a broken knife." No one moved. The crowd only mocked louder. The mother's shoulders shook and her child whimpered. It was a scene of shame, not just for her, but for all who watched. And then, a voice cut. Through the noise, "I'll pay." The words were calm, strong, and they silenced the laughter for a moment. All eyes turned to the source, the human traveler. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the dusty ground. His gaze was steady, unshaken by the mocking crowd. The announcer blinked in surprise. "A human? You would waste credits on this trash?" The human's voice was firm. "She is not trash. I'll take her." The crowd exploded in laughter again, but there was unease too. Why would a human care for an alien mother and child? The woman's eyes widened, hope and fear mixing inside. "Her," she whispered to her child. "Don't look, my love, it may be a trick." Her child hid against her chest, too weak to cry anymore. The human dropped a pouch of coins on the table. The sound of metal hitting wood silenced the jeers for a moment. The announcer smirked, picking up the pouch. Well, it seems the human wants his prize." He motioned to the guards, who shoved the woman forward. Chains rattled as they placed them in the human's hand. The crowd roared again. "Look, the human bought himself a slave. Let's see how long before he regrets it." The woman flinched as the human touched the chain. Her breath shook, her heart raced. She expected cruelty, pain, or humiliation. But the man did something no one expected. He bent down, looked at her child, then at her, and with one sharp pull, he unlocked the chains. They fell to the ground with a heavy sound. Gasps spread through the marketplace. The announcer froze, his smile fading. The guards stared in confusion. Even the mocking crowd went silent for a moment. The human's voice was quiet but clear. "You are not mine. You belong to no chains." The mother's eyes filled with tears. Her child looked up, confused but clinging tighter to her. The crowd began to whisper again. "What is he doing? Why free her? Why waste the money?" The human ignored them. He placed a hand gently on the mother's shoulder and said, Come, feed your child. That's all that matters. The woman trembled, unable to believe. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of something she thought was lost. Hope. And as the crowd watched in stunned silence, the story of shame began to change into something else, something none of them had expected. The chains lay broken on the ground. Shining under the harsh light of the auction hall, the alien mother stared at them, her breath shaking, her arms still wrapped around her child. She could not understand what had just happened. No one ever freed a slave here. No one ever gave away credits without wanting something back. The human stood firm, his eyes calm, his voice low. "Come with me," he said, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. But for the mother, it was not simple. It was terrifying. Her mind screamed, "What if it's a trap? What if he takes me somewhere worse?" The crowd had no mercy. They laughed, shouted, and mocked. "A fool human. He throws his money away on a starving mother and her brat. Maybe he wants to taste her misery." Every word cut her deeper, filling her with doubt and shame. The human ignored them. He held out, his hand not commanding, not forcing, just offering. "Your choice," he said quietly. "But your child needs food." "I have it." The little one tugged at her dress, whispering weakly, "Mama, I'm hungry." The words stabbed through her heart. Her body trembled. She had no strength left to protect her child. If this man wanted to hurt her, she would. Take the pain. But she could not let her daughter starve. The announcer laughed, enjoying the show. "Go on, woman. Take his hand if you dare. Sell yourself for free this time." The crowd howled in laughter again, but her eyes locked on the human's hand. It was steady, not shaking, not cruel. For the first time in years, someone looked at her not with hunger but with humanity. Her lips parted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why? Why would you help me?" The human answered simply, "Because no one else will." Those words struck her like a hammer. Her people had abandoned her. Strangers had mocked her. The guards had beaten her. But this man, this foreigner, saw her pain and chose to stand beside her. Slowly, painfully, she reached out her hand. Her fingers shook as they touched his. Her child clung tighter to her, eyes wide with fear. But the human only closed his hand gently around hers, not pulling, not forcing, just steady, like a promise. The crowd booed, throwing rotten food and stones. Pathetic. Let them starve. Together. But the human raised his head, his voice sharp and cold. "Enough!" The single word silenced the jeers for a heartbeat. There was steel in his tone, something that made even the guards hesitate. He pulled the mother and child close, shielding them with his body. Then he turned and walked out of the marketplace. Every step echoed like defiance. The laughter followed them, but it grew weaker. The further they walked, the less it mattered. Outside, the night air was cold. The mother's legs felt weak, ready to collapse. Her child whimpered, still hungry, still afraid. The human knelt down, opening a pack he carried. He pulled out bread, soft, warm, smelling rich, and offered it to the child. The little girl stared, too afraid to touch it. The mother whispered, "Take it, my love." The child reached out with trembling hands. She bit into the bread, and tears rolled down her face. "It's sweet, Mama. It's sweet." The mother's chest broke into sobs. She had forgotten the sound of her child's joy. The human gave water next, letting the child drink slowly. Then he turned to the mother and said softly, "You should eat, too." She shook her head. "No, my daughter first." But the child pushed the bread toward her. "Mama, please." Her lips trembled, but she obeyed. The taste was like fire and light after years of darkness. For a moment the world was silent around them, only the sound of chewing, the sound of breathing, and the sound of hope, returning little by little. Then the mother looked at him again, her voice low, filled with fear. "You freed me. But what now? Why do this? What do you want?" Her whole life, kindness had been a mask for cruelty. She could not trust so easily. The human's gaze was steady. I don't want chains, I don't want payment. I just want you both safe. The words were simple, but they carried a weight she could not deny. She pressed her child closer, her eyes wet with tears. No one ever said that to me before. The man stood, offering his hand again. You can stay with me tonight. Tomorrow, you choose again. It was not a command, it was freedom, a freedom she had not felt in years. The mother hesitated. Her heart screamed with fear, but her child's small hand rested on hers. Please, Mama, he saved us. And so, with a trembling breath, she made the desperate choice. She followed him into the night. Not as a slave, not as property, but as someone given the chance to live again, and deep inside her broken soul, a spark lit. The spark of trust, the spark of something she thought long dead, hope. The night was quiet, broken only by the sound of footsteps on dusty stone. The human walked ahead, steady and calm, while behind him the alien mother held her child close. Every step felt heavy for her, like walking between fear and hope. She had chosen to follow. But her heart still whispered doubt. She whispered to herself, why me? Why us? He will want something. They always do. Her child leaned against her shoulder, half asleep from exhaustion. The human finally stopped outside a small shelter on the edge of the market. It was not a fine house, just a traveler's rest with a fire pit, a roof of wood, and metal sheets. But to her it looked safer than the cruel auction hall she had just left. The man knelt by the fire, striking sparks to light it. The glow spread across the room, chasing away the shadows. He set out food on a rough table. Bread, dried fruit, water, and even a piece of meat. The smell filled the air, making the child's stomach growl. The mother froze, her eyes wide. She had not seen such food in months. Eat, the human said simply, his voice steady. The mother clutched her child tighter, shaking her head. No. We cannot take this, Gar. You paid for us already. What more do you want? Her words carried fear, shame, and suspicion. The human turned, looking at her with calm eyes. I don't want anything, he said. I told you already. You are not mine. You are free. Those words confused her more than chains ever did. Free? She had not been free in years. Her people had abandoned her. Her hunger had chained her, and the marketplace had marked her as worthless. Now a stranger, an alien stranger, told her she was free. It made no sense. No one gave freedom without price. The child slipped from her arms, running to the table. Little hands grabbed at the food, biting with joy. Sweet, Mama. It's sweet again, the girl cried. Tears filled the mother's eyes as she saw her child eat with laughter instead of tears. Her own stomach ached, but her heart ached more, aching with a question she could not ask. The human sat quietly, not touching the food. He watched them not with hunger or cruelty, but with patience. Finally, the mother whispered, You bought me. You placed coins for me. And now you say I am free. Why? The human leaned back, his face in the firelight. I did not buy you, he said firmly. I bought your chains. I bought the right to break them. He pointed to the corner where the broken metal still lay. You belong to no man, not me, not them. You belong to yourself. Her lips trembled, her eyes wet again. She shook her head, whispering, No, I don't belong anywhere. No one wants me. No one wants us. The words cut deep into the firelit silence. The child looked up, her mouth still full, and said softly, But he wanted us, Mama. He chose us. The human looked at the little girl, a small smile flickering at his lips. Your child is right, he said gently. I chose to stand for you, not because I needed to, but because someone had to. The mother's hands tightened into fists. Her whole life had been a storm of betrayal, cruelty, and hunger. Now this man claimed he chose her, not as property, not as burden, but as choice. Her chest hurt, her heart racing with confusion. She whispered, You don't even know me. Why take such risk? The human's eyes grew harder. Because I know enough, he said. I saw a mother ready to give herself for her child. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." The words struck her like lightning. No one had ever called her strong. No one had ever seen her sacrifice as anything more than weakness. Yet here was this human, lifting her pain like it was honor. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Her child leaned against her, smiling for the first time in weeks. The human finally rose, pulling a blanket from his pack. He laid it across the mother and child. "You should rest," he said softly. "I'll keep watch. Nothing will harm you tonight." The mother stared at him, lost between gratitude and fear. Her lips opened, then closed, unable to form the words. Her body trembled as she pulled the blanket tighter around her daughter. Her eyes stayed on the human, watching him sit near the fire. He held no chains, no whip, no collar, only a blade on his side and eyes that carried silent promises for the first time. She allowed her eyes to close. Sleep came slowly, but it came with safety she had forgotten long ago. Her last thought before darkness was simple: "If this is a dream, please don't let me wake." And outside, the human sat guard, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade, his eyes scanning the shadows, not for treasure, not for enemies, but for the safety of the woman and child who now slept under his protection. It was not chains that bound them now. It was a claim of choice, a claim made not with money, but with kindness. The night passed slowly, the fire crackling in the small shelter. The human stayed awake, his eyes scanning the shadows outside. Every sound of the night, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of beasts, made him grip the hilt of his blade. Inside, the alien mother slept uneasily, clutching her child as if someone might still try to steal her away. When morning light broke through the wooden cracks of the roof, the little girl stirred first. Her small hands rubbed her eyes, her stomach growling loudly in the quiet room. The sound pierced the silence. The mother opened her eyes instantly, her first thought always the same: food. She sat up quickly, worried that maybe the human would be gone. But he was there, sitting near the doorway, watching the sunrise. His face calm, his body still, as if he had not slept at all. The child whispered, "Mama, hungry." Her voice was weak but pleading, and the mother's heart twisted with pain. The human turned, noticing without a word. He reached into his pack and pulled out more food: dried bread, fruit, and a small piece of smoked meat. He placed it on the table between them. "Eat," he said simply. The little girl's eyes widened, her hands shaking as she reached for the bread. The mother grabbed her wrist, stopping her. Her eyes narrowed at the human, filled with suspicion. "You keep feeding." "Us? Why? What will you ask later?" The human didn't answer with anger. He only said calmly, "Children shouldn't starve." Then he looked at the girl and added, "Go on. It's yours." The girl's lips trembled as she looked at her mother. "Mama, please." "Just a little." The mother's eyes filled with tears. She had begged for scraps in the streets before. She had traded her pride for crumbs. And now, this man gave them food without demand. Her hands loosened, and the girl snatched the bread, biting quickly. Her eyes closed as she chewed, smiling with relief. "It's soft, Mama, not bitter. It's soft," she whispered. The mother covered her mouth with her hands, crying silently as she watched her child finally eat like a child again. The human placed a small wooden cup of water next to her. "Drink slowly," he said. The girl obeyed, gulping and then stopping as he instructed. His tone was not harsh but careful, like someone who knew how fragile hunger could make the body. The mother finally spoke, her voice broken. "You act like you care. But you don't know us, you don't know our curse." The human looked at her steadily. "Maybe I don't need to know everything. I see enough. A child hungry, a mother willing to sell herself to save her. That's all I need to understand." The words struck her again, deeper this time. No one had ever spoken of her sacrifice with respect. Her people only saw weakness. The marketplace saw shame. But this man, this stranger, saw strength. Still, her fear was not gone. She whispered, "If others find us with you, they will say you are a fool. They may even attack. Why risk so much?" The human gave a small, bitter smile. They already laughed. Let them. I didn't come here for their approval. The little girl finished her food, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Mama, he is kind. He is not like the others." The mother hugged her child tightly, but her eyes stayed fixed on the human. She wanted to believe her daughter's words. She wanted to believe the warmth she saw in his eyes. But her scars ran deep. The human finally stood walking to the doorway. He looked out at the dusty road leading away from the market. "You can stay here for the day, or you can come with me," he said, his voice calm. "There will be dangers. Slavers may hunt. Villagers may spit. But if you walk with me, you won't face it alone." The mother's heart pounded in her chest. It was another choice, another chance. But choices always came with fear. She asked softly, "Why give me the choice? Why not just order me if you truly bought me?" The human turned, his gaze steady. "Because I didn't buy you. I freed you. The choice is always yours now." Her breath caught, her hands shaking. The word choice. It felt strange in her mouth, like a forgotten dream. She looked at her child, who smiled, crumbs still on her lips. The girl whispered, "Mama, I want to go with him. Please." Tears rolled down the mother's cheeks. Her child wanted hope, and she could no longer deny her child hope. With trembling lips, she nodded. "Then, we will follow you." The human gave a small nod. No smile, no cheer, just a quiet acceptance, and then keep close. The road ahead is not kind. As they stepped out into the morning sun, the mother felt the stares of villagers burning into her skin. She heard their whispers, their cruel laughter. But this time, she was not alone. The human walked beside her, and her daughter held both their hands, giggling softly as if the world had already changed. For the first time in years, the mother did not bow her head. She walked forward, fear in her chest, but hope in her heart. Her child's hunger had led her here. But maybe, just maybe, this human's kindness would lead them somewhere beyond survival, somewhere closer to life. The road into the village was narrow, lined with cracked stone walls and broken stalls. People stood in doorways, whispering and pointing as the human walked beside the alien mother and her child. The morning sun revealed every stare, every cruel smile, every mocking laugh. The mother felt her cheeks burn, her steps growing heavy. She pulled her child closer, whispering, "Keep your head down, don't look at them." But the little girl, innocent and full from her first real meal, skipped lightly at their side. Her laughter rang out, drawing more eyes. The villagers sneered, "Look at her, still smiling while she clings to a stranger. She begged at the market yesterday. Now she walks proud because of a fool human." The words cut deep like knives thrown without mercy. The mother wanted to disappear, to hide her shame, but the human walked tall, his back straight, his eyes forward. He did not slow, he did not bow his head. He carried himself with a strength that silenced some whispers, but not all. A group of traders stepped into their path, blocking the way. One of them laughed, showing broken teeth. "You paid good credits for trash, human. You could have bought a strong worker, a skilled hand, but you chose her." The others jeered. "She is cursed, weak, worthless. Even her own people cast her out." The mother trembled, clutching her child tight. Her voice broke. "Please, let us pass." The traders ignored her, spitting at her feet. The little girl flinched, hiding behind her mother's dress. Tears filled her wide eyes. The human stepped forward, placing himself between them and the woman. His voice was calm, but cold as steel. "You see weakness. I see something stronger than you'll ever understand." The traders sneered. "Strong? This woman sold herself for crumbs. What strength is there in shame?" The human's jaw tightened. He looked at the mother, then back at the men. She gave her pride, her body, her future, so her child could eat. That is not shame. That is strength you cowards could never bear. The words struck the crowd like thunder. Some muttered, shifting uneasily. Others laughed louder, refusing to admit the sting of truth. But the mother's eyes widened, her heart racing. No one had ever defended her like this. No one had ever spoken of her sacrifice with honor. The traitor spat again, but none dared to move closer. The human's gaze was too steady, his stance too sure. Finally, they stepped aside, muttering insults as they walked away. The path cleared, but the villagers' whispers grew louder behind them. Mad human, protecting trash. He'll regret it soon. No one saves the cursed. The mother's head sank lower, shame filling her chest, but her daughter tugged her hand, smiling up at her. Mama, he stood for you. Did you hear him? He called you strong. Tears blurred the mother's vision. She whispered, Yes, I heard. But inside she battled doubt. Could she believe those words? Could she believe she was more than what the world said she was? They reached a small well in the village square. The human stopped, drawing water with strong hands. He filled a cup and offered it first to the child, then to the mother. The villagers stared, disgusted. To serve water, to her, to feed her child, a human lowering himself for dirt? The human ignored them all, his voice steady as he spoke only to the mother. You walk with me now. Let them talk. Their words do not matter. But the mother shook her head, tears falling. They will never stop. They will hate you for this. They will hate me more. Her voice cracked. Why carry such burden? Why not leave us behind? The human looked at her for a long moment, then he said, calm but firm, Because you are not a burden. You are a choice. And I do not walk away from choices I make. The words hit her harder than the jeers ever could. Her lips trembled, her heart pounding in her chest. For years, she had been abandoned, thrown away, called worthless. And now, this man, this stranger, claimed her, not as property, but as choice. The little girl smiled, splashing her hands in the well water. She giggled, free for a moment from the weight of shame. And the mother, though fear still clung to her, felt something warm spark in her chest. Not just hope. Something stronger. Something she dared not name yet. The villagers still whispered, their laughter still sharp. But as the mother looked at the human beside her, she realized something. For the first time, she was not facing the scorn alone. Someone stood with her. Someone chose her. And though the road ahead promised danger and more hatred, she felt a flicker of courage rise inside her. Not because the world had changed, but because she was no longer walking through it alone. Night fell again and the small village grew quiet. Houses shut their doors, lamps dimmed, and the streets emptied. But in one corner inside a broken shelter, 3 souls sat together. A human, an alien mother, and her little child. The mother wrapped her daughter in the rough blanket. The child leaned against her, yawning. Mama, I feel safe tonight. Those words pierced the woman's chest. Her daughter had never said safe before. Hunger, fear, and shame had been her child's only world. Until now, the human set another small fire, the flames pushing back the shadows. He checked the doorway carefully, then returned to sit near them. The mother watched him closely, her eyes sharp with doubt. She whispered, Why stay awake? Why guard us? We are nothing to you. The man shook his head slowly. You are not nothing, he said firmly. I promised. Nothing will harm you tonight. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it, a promise not made lightly. The mother lowered, her gaze torn between fear and hope. She had been betrayed before. She had trusted kind words before, only to pay with pain. Her voice broke. Kindness always hides chains. Sooner or later, the human looked at her directly. Then let my actions prove me wrong. The little girl giggled sleepily. Mama, he gave us food and he didn't take it back. He gave us a blanket too. The child's innocence made the mother's eyes burn with tears. She stroked her daughter's hair, whispering softly, Yes, my love, he did. The fire crackled, filling the silence. The human pulled something small from his pack, a piece of wood and a blade. He began carving slowly, steady hands shaping the wood. The mother watched in silence, suspicious but curious. What are you doing? She asked, her voice sharp. The man didn't look up. Something for your child. Minutes passed, the sound of blade on wood soft and steady. Finally, he held out a small figure, rough but clear. It was a tiny carved bird, wings spread as if ready to fly. The little girl's eyes lit up. For me? She gasped. The human smiled faintly, placing it in her hands. Every child should have something of their own. A toy, a dream. Not just hunger. The girl hugged the little bird, her laughter bright in the small room. The mother stared at the figure. Her breath caught in her chest, her lips trembled. Why give her this? You already gave food. Why more? The human finally looked at her, his voice soft. Because survival is not enough. She deserves to live, to smile, to dream. The mother turned away quickly, tears rolling down her cheeks. Her heart ached with something she had buried for years. A longing to believe, a longing to trust, but fear still gripped her tightly. She whispered almost to herself, You speak as if you know pain, as if you lost something too. The human's eyes darkened, the firelight flickering across his face. I've seen war. I've seen children starve. I've seen mothers beg. I could not save them then, but I can save you now. His voice cracked for a brief moment, then steadied again. It was not just pity, it was memory, pain hidden deep in his heart. The mother's eyes widened, her guard trembling. This man was not just a traveler. He carried his own scars, invisible but heavy, and for the first time she saw not a stranger, but someone who understood. The child yawned again, curling into sleep with the little bird clutched in her hand. The mother gently pulled the blanket over her daughter. Then she looked at the human again, her lips parted, her voice fragile. You could have walked away. You could have left us to die. Why risk yourself? Why take our shame as your burden? The human leaned back against the wall, his gaze firm. Because no one else would. And because sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing. I won't. Walk away. The mother's chest tightened. For years, every word she had heard was cruel. Every act of kindness came with hidden chains. But this man spoke with no mask, no price, and his actions matched his words. Slowly, painfully, she whispered, Then maybe I can try to trust you, just a little. The human nodded once, not pressing for more. That is enough. Trust is built step by step. The fire burned lower. The mother sat closer to her sleeping child. But this time, she did not pull away from the human's presence. She let the warmth of the flames and the quiet strength of his watchful eyes give her something she had thought was lost forever. The first spark of trust. It was small, fragile, trembling like the little wooden bird in her daughter's hands. But it was real, and that spark could grow. Outside, the village was still full of whispers, slavers still hunted, dangers still waited. But inside that broken shelter, for the first time in years, the mother did not feel completely alone, and that changed everything. The journey beyond the village was rough. Dusty paths wound through broken hills, and the smell of danger hung in the air. The human walked ahead, steady as always, his blade at his side. Behind him, the alien mother carried her child. Her steps, unsteady but stronger than before, whispers of their escape had spread. Slavers who lost their profit wanted revenge. Hunters who hated humans wanted to test him. The road was no safe place. But still, they moved forward together. By the second night, the little girl laughed more than she cried. She clutched the wooden bird in her hands, humming softly. Her mother watched her daughter with quiet tears. Her child had never looked so alive, and it was because of him. The human, sitting by the fire, sharpened his blade. Every sound of stone against steel echoed like a warning. He knew danger would come. He had felt the eyes in the dark, the shadows that followed them. And then it came. A howl split the night, deep and hungry. From the trees, 3 slavers stepped out, their armor glinting in the firelight. Chains dangled from their hands, their grins sharp and cruel. There she is, one growled, the worthless mother and her brat. And the human who plays hero? The mother froze, her heart racing, clutching her child close. The little girl whimpered, whispering, "Mama, not again." The slavers laughed. "You think you can protect them, human? We'll take the girl, and maybe you too. Humans sell well in the pits." The human rose slowly, his eyes calm but burning. He stepped forward, placing himself between the slavers and the trembling woman. His voice was like iron. "She is not yours. She never was. You will not touch them." The slavers roared with laughter, swinging their chains, but laughter turned to shouts as the human moved. Fast, sharp, brutal. Steel flashed, and one slaver fell, the chain slipping from his dead grip. The others cursed, striking with cruel whips, but the human fought with a fury that made the firelight blaze brighter. The mother shielded her daughter, watching in terror and awe. Every strike, every step was for them, not for pride, not for wealth, not for glory. For them, when it was over, the slavers lay broken in the dirt. The human stood breathing heavily, his blade dripping. The fire cast long shadows across his face. He turned, his eyes softening as he looked at the mother and child. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The mother shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her voice trembled. "You fought them. For us." The human nodded, cleaning his blade. "I told you. I will not let chains take you again." The little girl ran to him, clutching his leg. "Don't leave us, please," she whispered. Her mother followed slowly, her knees weak. She looked at him with eyes full of tears. "No one has ever stood for me like this," she said, her voice breaking. "No one has ever chosen me." The human's gaze was steady. "I chose you when I broke your chains," he said quietly. "And I will choose you again every day, if you let me." The mother's heart shattered and healed all at once. She dropped to her knees, holding her daughter close. Her tears fell not from shame now, but from release. From the weight finally lifted, she whispered, her voice raw, "I was sold as nothing. But you gave me everything back. Not chains, not ownership, but love." The human knelt beside her, his rough hand resting on her shoulder. His touch was steady, not demanding. "You belong to no one," he said softly. "But if you choose, you can walk with me. Not as slave, not as burden. As family." The child beamed, hugging them both. "Yes, Mama, family," she cried. The mother's tears flowed harder. She nodded, her lips trembling. "Then, I choose you." The fire burned higher, chasing away the shadows. The broken chains lay far behind them. The jeers of the village, the scorn of strangers, the hunger and shame, all left behind. The road ahead was still dangerous. The world would not suddenly become kind. But for the first time, the mother did not fear the future, because she was no longer alone, because she was no longer worthless. She was chosen, not by chains but by love. And as the three of them sat together beneath the stars, the human's silent vow echoed stronger than steel. She was free, and nothing in the galaxy would take that from her again.